welcome to the third edition of Consult 101. And today we'll be discussing unconventional cases with Pranav and Nithish. So, Pranav is an incoming associate at Bain, and Nithish is an incoming associate BCG as well. So, we'll hand it to them to give a more detailed intro about themselves and what they've done in INSTI over the last 5 or so years.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Pranav Condur. I graduate with a BTech in Aerospace Engineering and a master's degree in Energy Systems from IITM this year. I'm heading to Bain as an associate consultant later this year. Happy to do an unconventional case today. In my time on campus, I spent it with the quiz club, did some aerospace research, some CFI, and a lot of bit talking.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Nithish. I'm the class of 2023 recent graduate. Will be going out with BTech in biotechnology and MTech in energy systems. I will be joining BCG later this year as a associate. During my time in INSTI, I was in a bunch of things: Shastra, Sarang, 180 DC, etc., etc.
Okay, cool, Nithish. I think your resume looks great. Let's get started with our case.
Okay.
So let's say your uncle had a scooter and it broke down, and your uncle was looking at getting another scooter, and they had a couple of options in their mind. The first one is to get another Activa, an IC engine Activa, or to move to something slightly more revolutionary, something more new in terms of an electric two-wheeler. Assume like a Ola scooter or an Ather 450 or something of that sort.
Okay, cool. So just so that I got this clear, my uncle's scooter broke down, and now he wants to buy a new scooter, and he's looking at options like maybe a conventional petrol-powered scooter like Activa or something like Ather or Ola, which is electric powered, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have a few clarifying questions for this before I go ahead with the case.
Sure.
One is I want to understand the reason for him to prefer Ola scooter. Like the obvious thing is his scooter broke down and he wants to buy a new one. Other than that, is his drive to buy an Ola scooter motivated by something like good for the environment, he doesn't want to pollute, or is it just purely monetary?
I think combination of both, but mainly monetary. They don't want to spend as much on commute or as much on vehicles as they used to.
Okay, got it. So now that is sorted, is uncle considering not buying a scooter at all? Whether he can take public transport or wherever he is that is going. Do you want me to consider that case as well?
Well, great question, but I think we can assume they want a two-wheeler at home for personal purposes.
Okay, great. Now that we got the motive of buying scooters sorted, I want to get into the usage patterns of our uncle. I want to know what he uses the scooter primarily for. So,
I think
weekends and weekdays. I want to understand his usage patterns across both of these.
So I think during the weekdays, of course, it's just commuting to and fro from office and other little chores. And on the weekends, it's usually for leisure, right? Going to the beach, going to a mall, taking the wife and kids out, something like that.
Okay, right, got it. So a few questions regarding his usage patterns, more questions, follow-up questions I have. Is basically how far is his office from his home and where does he live in, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think he lives in the middle of Chennai, and I think 5 kilometers up and 5 kilometers down to and from the office. So I think 10 kilometers per day is spent on commute.
Okay. And for leisure, what is his usage pattern in weekends? Does he go out?
I think let's say every weekend there's like a beach trip, and given that you're from Chennai, just maybe come up with a Chennai Central to beach distance approximation.
Okay. Any other things I need to consider? Like, does he go out to run errands or dropping kids off to school?
No, I think all of that can just you can take a 1.5x factor on the entire distance traveled to estimate the total range.
Okay, got it. So leisure, since his house in the middle of Chennai and there's a beach nearby, so I'm going to assume that's 5 kilometers into 2, it's like up and down, so like 10 kilometers a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll add the factors later on. So
Okay.
other questions I have. Just give me a second. I'll think of
Sure.
that. Okay. So I'm going to start putting. So the approach we are going to take here is that since our uncle is not really concerned about the environment as much as he's concerned about the money, we are going to compare scooter A, which is Activa, to scooter B, which is Ola scooter, and see which makes more monetary sense for him in the usage. Does that sound like a fair approach?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Great. So in scooter A, which is our petrol scooter, which has an obvious fixed price of buying versus the Ola scooter, which has a fixed price of buying. We are going to compare those two, and next we are going to compare the running costs of petrol versus EV.
Okay.
I'll get you numbers. I need some numbers from your side. I hope you can help me
Sure.
with that.
Let's do that. But like, I think before we get into that, let's just estimate the amount of distance traveled roughly. That number, I think, let's just keep in mind
Yeah, okay, sure.
per week.
Right. So 10 kilometers a day for 5 days plus 10 kilometers a week in the weekends puts our numbers to about 60 kilometers a week plus the scaling factor of 1.5 times, which you mentioned for other activities, puts the number to about 90 kilometers a week. Hope that's fair.
Sure. Let's just take that to be 100 kilometers, I think.
Great. 100 kilometers a week is the number. Right. And one more thing. How long does our uncle plan on keeping the scooter?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think 10 years on average. They use their previous scooter for I think 10 years. So I think 10 years is something we're looking at.
Okay, great. Okay, so how I'm going to go about this is I will calculate. This is for Activa scooter. I will calculate the running cost of Activa scooter all throughout the 10 years, which is basically petrol and maintenance.
Yeah.
Plus the cost which takes for us to buy the Activa scooter. And in EV, I'm going to do the same. Plus, there will be an extra factor of a battery replacement cost, which should be done at somewhere around 5 years. I think I can assume 5 year, right? It seems like a reasonable number.
Yeah, I think so. Twice in the 10-year period is something that.
Right. So we need a battery replacement once because the scooter comes with a battery. So I will need to add that as well. Okay. I'm going to assume, based on since my grandfather owns a scooter himself, I'm going to assume that cost of a battery is about 80,000. Sorry, 40,
Okay.
50,000. Right. Okay. So if you could give me a second, I'm going to put numbers into formula and let you know how to proceed.
Okay, sure. That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, so before I go ahead with that, I am in need of a few more numbers, which I will get it clarified from you. Hope that's okay.
Okay,
Uh,
sure. Go ahead.
okay, right. For this is for electric vehicle. I might need the fuel efficiency of electric vehicles, which is basically how many kilometers can it run in a charge or like in per kilowatt hour.
Sure. Okay, so I think about 150 kilometers on a full battery charge.
Okay.
And I think the battery capacity is somewhere around 3.74 kilowatt hour. I think 3.7 is the actual number.
Okay.
What else do you need?
And the electricity cost, which is like cost per kilowatt hour.
Okay, you're in Chennai. What do you think the number looks like?
Okay, so I'm thinking it's somewhere between 6 to 12, depending upon how much usage you have per home. So it's
Yeah,
fair.
I think I think about 7 is a good number to take.
No. And the price of an Activa scooter, I have assumed it to be 1 lakh. Hope that's okay.
I think 80K is more in line with current prices. So 80K.
Okay. And the price of an Aether is
Price of an Aether is about 1.5L.
okay. Um, And I have assumed following numbers for Activa,
Okay.
which is mileage. I've assumed somewhere to be around 70 kilometers per
Okay.
liter, and
Okay.
cost per liter is somewhere around 100.
Sure. Yeah. I think that sounds fair.
Okay. Uh, okay. So from what numbers that have been given, the running cost of um the electric vehicle for the course of 10 years is turning out to be somewhere near 10 to 15,000 plus the 40 to 50,000 which takes for us to replace the battery at the end of 5 years. This is compared to the Activa, which takes about somewhere near 70 to 75,000 just for petrol. Uh,
Okay.
okay, so adding up the numbers, it seems that um, it seems that Activa is still turning out to be profitable just because of the fact that its costs
Can we have
are
the final numbers, please? What does it
it's
finally
somewhere
come down
around
to?
1.5 lakhs for the Activa for the running cost across 10 years plus the initial investment we do, plus
Okay.
somewhere around 2 lakhs for the Ather scooter.
Got it. Okay. 2 lakhs for the eighth scooter. Just to make sure, let's just quickly sense check these numbers, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think it comes down to, for the eighth scooter, it comes down to like 0.15 rupees per kilometer, something like that. Are we aligned on those numbers?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. And then like that into, let's say, almost 100 kilometers per week. And let's say there's like 50 weeks in a year. And then we do that for 10 years, right? So
Hmm.
that's 10 power 4 and 2.75. Cool. I think that sounds really good. I think those numbers check out. I think that's something we can work with. So you're recommending that we go ahead with Activa, is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Because even though the initial investment cost, even though the petrol costs of Activa are high, the initial investment cost of Ather does not justify the fact that even though the current expenses are low, it does not cross Activa.
Cool. So I think Activa looks really good. But then, if we were to look at 5 years, obviously, what would the thought process be? If let's not go with the numbers here, but if we were to cut down from 10 years to say 5 years, what would the difference be? What should we consider? What should we not consider?
So major significant difference here would be that we don't have to buy a replacement battery for Ather because the battery that comes with life is for 5 years. And obviously,
Okay.
we have to drop the runtime of both of these scooters by a factor of two.
Okay. Understood. Makes sense. If you could just quickly formulate your final recommendations to your uncle, that'd be great.
Okay. Before that, I'd like to discuss is our uncle's monthly salary enough to buy both of these scooters because Ather is a significantly higher investment than Activa. So maybe if you want, we can discuss loan options so that this covers his monthly salary. Do you think that's something we can look at before we close the case? Or?
I think sure. If you have something in mind, let's look at it. But it's not something I'm very keen on. I'm sure your uncle has enough in the bank to afford both of them on a good front.
Okay, then great. So I think we can proceed to synthesis.
Great. If you can just quickly make your final recommendations to your uncle, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Just give me a second. I'll come. So my recommendation to my uncle would be to buy an Activa scooter because the total expenditure, capital plus operating for an Activa scooter seems to be less than Ather scooter. Maybe in a few years of time, if the battery capacity of Ather grows in such a way that the operating expenditure drops significantly than the Activa, that is some option to consider, but that should not be considered at this given point of time.
Great. Thanks so much. Getting into feedback, I think overall great case. When you have such a case where you're evaluating different options, I think it's first important to come up with a metric of choice that you're using to benchmark these different options at. I think in this particular case, it was the total costs, right? Over 5 years or 10 years or something like that. I think that is something you should set at the start of the case. Ask for what the objective is and what the metric is and what the timelines are. And I think Nitish, in his preliminary questions, he asked all the right numbers and the kind of information that he needed, which is what is my uncle going to use, or his uncle going to use the vehicle for, how much distance will they travel. All of that is obviously essential information that Nitish needed, and he got those numbers.
Yeah. So one problem I did there was I forgot a few numbers which I should have asked in the preliminary, and then I had to ask it in a phase 2 round of questioning. Ideally, guys don't do that. So how you do about it is you take a few seconds in the first, think about a formula you want to put that down on paper, then extract all the necessary numbers as much as you can from the interviewer. Because going back and forth in terms of numbers like preliminary solving is not really a good way to solve cases. I am very rusty. This is my first case in a year or so. Anyways.
I think another feedback on that front is when you have a formula, I think it's very important that you're coming up with terms where the units keep canceling out, right? I think that's the way to think about it. The telescopics where like one quantity will be A by B, second will be B by C, third will be C by D, something like that. And you're left with like A by F or something like that, which is your total quantity that you're looking for, right? It's always important to think of formulas on that front. And when you're plugging in numbers and doing multiplication, etc., I think it's best to think out loud. Like think of, oh yeah, this quantity is 50 kilometers multiplied by whatever electricity cost is point or like 6 rupees per unit or something of that sort, right? I think it's important to think out loud when you're doing these calculations, just so that you're keeping the interviewer in loop. It's very important that you realize that every case is a co-solving session. It's not just you doing it; it's you along with your interviewer. So keep them in the loop as much as you can.